My stepchildren said, "You'll never be enough for US." I canceled their therapy I was paying for and booked my own. I finally felt heard. I was never supposed to be their father. I knew that. The title wasn't what I wanted. But I wanted something. Recognition. A nod. A place at the table that didn't feel rented. When I met Carol, she came with two sons already baked into the arrangement, Nate and Logan. I shook their hands in the driveway the first night I came over for dinner. Logan was 11. Nate was 13 and already looking past me like he was scouting for exits. They didn't smile. They didn't say much. I thought, fair enough. I'm the outsider. 12 years later, I still was. Not once in that time did I hear the words Dad from either of them. Not even a joke. Not even when I was the one standing in for the man who'd vanished. Their biological father, Charlie, the myth. The pictures of him never faded. They stayed on the mantel, smiling from their wooden frames like relics from a better time. Carol never took them down. Sometimes I caught her dusting them. Charlie was the father who could do no wrong. The one who'd left but was never blamed. Who never paid for the dentist bills but still got whispered praise over dinner. "Your father was so funny." Or, "He always made Christmas special." I used to nod along. What I didn't see back then was that those memories had already buried me. I was stepping into a role that was filled with ghosts. Every time I showed up at the parent-teacher meetings, on the sidelines at soccer games, during hospital visits, I was playing a part nobody had asked me to audition for. And they never let me forget it. At first, I convinced myself they were just kids. That time would mellow them. That presence would matter. I thought that if I just kept showing up, eventually the wall would crack. But it didn't. Calcified. They'd hand me Father's Day cards with "thanks" from all of us, scribbled like it was a tax write-off. I paid for everything: phones, college prep, Christmas trips they barely looked up from their screens for. But I was just the man with the wallet. The man who stood quietly behind Carol while they posted pictures with captions like, "Family Night Red Heart." Always cropped, so I was just outside the frame. Still, I stayed. I told myself, you don't need thanks. You don't need love. But the truth is, I did. And the house knew it. It groaned with that truth. You can always feel the weight of something unspoken. The way people pause before saying your name. The way they roll their eyes just as you leave the room. The late-night whispers from behind closed doors. I used to lean against the wall outside their rooms, listening. For what? I don't know. Some evidence that I mattered? Some scrap of validation? All I ever heard were comparisons. Charlie would have let us go. Charlie never made things such a big deal. Mom, why is he always so tense? The same Charlie who hadn't paid child support in 6 years. Who lived 2 states away and still managed to be closer to them than I ever was. I stopped trying to compete with a ghost. But that didn't mean I stopped showing up. I was there for every move, every new school, every late-night illness. I picked Logan up at 2 a.m. when he called from a party he shouldn't have been at. I drove 6 hours through snow to get Nate to a college interview when his bus got canceled. I kept receipts. Not because I wanted reimbursement, but because I wanted to remember the days I mattered. They never thanked me. Not once. The hardest part wasn't the disrespect. It was the revision of history in real time. The way they spoke to others, painting our life together like I was some overbearing house guest. My mom's husband. That's how they introduced me. Not Jonathan. Not even stepdad. Just some guy married to their mother. Carol never corrected them. At dinner, I'd try to make conversation. Ask about their classes, their friends. Logan would mumble. Nate would look at his phone. Carol would smile, tense, and say, "They're just tired. Always tired. Too tired to talk. Too tired to try. But never too tired to ask for more." When Logan wanted a new gaming console, he texted me a link without a word. When Nate needed money for his spring break trip, he emailed me an itinerary and a payment request. No, please. No, thank you. Just expectation. They didn't see me. They saw a service. An ATM with a man's face. And Carol? She let it happen. She asked me to be patient, to give them time to understand their pain. I did. For 12 years, I did. Even when they started to joke about me. That's when it shifted from silence to mockery. Not to my face, not at first. But I'd walk into a room and it would fall quiet. Phones flipped face down. Once, I saw Logan's screen before he locked it. A meme me, asleep in a chair with the caption, "Budget Dad, now with 90% less authority." I laughed it off, pretended it didn't hurt, but it did. Carol said they were just being boys, that boys tease the people they love. But I wasn't loved. I was tolerated. Barely. They left messes in the kitchen and waited for me to clean them. They broke the garage door and said nothing, just waited for it to magically fix itself. Nate crashed the car and called his friend before he called us. When I asked why, he shrugged. "Didn't think you'd care." Didn't think I'd care? I nearly went broke getting that car fixed. He never said a word. The worst of it came quietly. The way they used me and dismissed me in the same breath. I'd give them what they wanted, rides, money, meals, and within an hour I was invisible again. A ghost. But not the kind that gets remembered with fondness. Just the kind that lives in the walls and pays the bills. Still, I told myself, they're young. They don't understand what it means to be ungrateful. Maybe one day they'll see. That hope, the one I clung to like a lifeline, it died the night I heard the truth. Not behind a closed door. Not whispered in passing. Not filtered through teenage sarcasm. But out loud. Clear. Direct. "You're nothing to us." And in that moment, I realized I had been playing a role that wasn't mine. That had never been mine. And never would be. It happened on a Tuesday. Hot, sticky air pressed through the windows. The AC was sputtering again. Another thing I'd have to fix. I came home later than usual. My shirt stuck to my back. I could hear them before I opened the door. Raised voices. Accusations flying. Logan yelling. Nate pacing. Carol trying to smooth it over. Her voice pinched and flat. School schedules. Missed deadlines. Something about Nate not registering for SAT prep. Logan didn't want to go to his tutoring sessions. Same story. New day. I stepped into the living room and said, "What's going on?" 3 heads turned. Logan scoffed and folded his arms. Nate rolled his eyes. Carol looked at me like she wanted to disappear. "They're arguing about school again," she said, voice low. I tried to keep mine steady. "We've talked about this. Logan, you're behind in math. Nate, if you want scholarships, you have to." "Don't," Logan snapped. "Just don't." I blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't pretend like this is your call." He stepped forward. "You're not our dad." I opened my mouth. Something to defuse it, to pivot, to survive the blow. But Nate cut in. "You'll never be enough for us. So stop acting like you matter." Carol didn't speak. She didn't say a word. And that silence, that complicit, slow-burning, devastating silence, did more damage than any insult ever could. I stared at them, her, at the space where our family used to pretend to exist. Something inside me shifted, not snapped. Snapping is loud. This was quieter than that. It was like watching a glass slide off the counter in slow motion, knowing it's going to shatter and realizing you don't care enough to catch it. I turned, walked back outside, sat in the car, and closed the door. Didn't start the engine. Just sat. Windows up. Air thick. I stayed there for 40 minutes. When I walked back inside, I didn't look at them. That night, after they went to bed, I logged into the counseling clinic's website, the one I'd been paying for out of pocket. I clicked through the accounts, one for each of them. I canceled the auto-pay on all 3. Therapy had been my idea. I thought maybe it would help them process their grief, their anger, their absentee father. I thought if I gave them a space to unpack the pain, they'd see what I was trying to do. All I got in return was a mirror. The idea of speaking, really speaking, to someone who didn't already see me as a burden, a backup, a joke. The following Tuesday, I sat in a chair across from a woman with warm eyes and a legal pad. I said very little at first, but she didn't rush me. When I finally spoke, the words came slow and cracked, like an old pipe waking up after a winter freeze. "I'm not angry," I said. She let the silence settle between us. I told her about the years, the holidays, the way they used to call Charlie Dad. even though he didn't send birthday cards. The way Carol always looked at me like she was asking for one more inch, one more hour, one more ounce of patience. I told her about the night they said it. You'll never be enough. When I said those words out loud, I felt something sharp in my throat. I couldn't keep my eyes dry. She said something simple. You deserve respect. And that was the moment the dam cracked. Not because it was new, but because no one had ever said it to me. I walked out of that office and sat in the parking lot with my forehead on the steering wheel, breathing like I just run a marathon. And I knew something had changed. It didn't happen all at once. Started small. First, I stopped paying for extras. The things that weren't essential. No more, can I get this? Texts from Logan. No more surprise deposits to Nate's lunch account. I took my name off their phone plans. I deleted my card from Carol's Amazon account. She noticed. Of course she noticed. What's going on? She asked one night. I looked her in the eyes and said, I'm not going to keep showing up in a life where I'm treated like I don't exist. She opened her mouth to argue, closed it. Maybe for the first time, she really saw the tired in my eyes. Not frustration, not anger, just weariness. The kind that comes when you've been trying to plug a leak in a boat that everyone else has already abandoned. The boys didn't notice right away, until Logan's payment for his school retreat bounced. He came to me not yelling, just confused, embarrassed, quiet. Why didn't it go through? He asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just said, ask the dad who matters to you. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. Then he left the room. A week later, Carol sat me down. She said they were just teenagers, that they didn't mean it, that I shouldn't take it to heart. I listened. Then I said, they don't have to love me, but I don't have to destroy myself for people who treat me like I'm nothing. She cried. She said she was scared. Scared of losing me. I shrugged. If you were afraid earlier, they wouldn't have said what they did. I didn't leave the house. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam the door. I just stopped being their stepdad. I became a man who lived in the same house. A man who no longer bent himself backwards for a role that had never fit. The shift was quiet, but irreversible. I made my own dinners, took my own car, stopped asking how their days were, stopped answering when they asked for help with homework. When Carol asked me to pick up something from the store for Logan, I said, he can ask his father. She didn't reply. The boys grew colder. Not crueler, just more distant. Their silence was easier than their contempt. One night, Nate stood in the hallway hovering. He didn't come closer. Just said, Mom says you're upset. I looked at him, really looked at him. This boy I had raised, clothed, protected. And I said, I'm not upset. I'm finished. He nodded slowly, then left. That was the last time either of them spoke to me directly for almost 2 weeks. The house became a museum of unspoken truths. Dinner happened in shifts. Conversations passed over me like I was furniture. I slept, I worked, I kept to myself. And for the first time in years, I stopped feeling guilty about it. Because I had finally accepted what they'd been telling me all along. I didn't belong. And the tragedy wasn't that they told me. It's that I believed them. It's strange how quickly a house adapts to absence. Not just physical, but emotional. I was still there. I still took off my boots by the door, still folded laundry, still fixed the broken screen door when no one else would. But something had shifted. The air had changed. They felt it, even if they didn't have the words for it. It started with small things. Logan's gaming subscription expired. He came downstairs, phone in hand, voice clipped. Did the card change? I didn't look up from my book. I took it off the account. Silence. A beat. Then, why? I didn't blink. Because it's not my job anymore. He stood there, waiting for something. An apology. A reversal. Anything that would restore the balance they had grown used to. But I didn't give it to him. Eventually, he turned and walked away. Next, it was Nate. His laptop charger broke. He left a note on the counter. Need new charger. Can you order one? No greeting. No please. Just assumption. I left the note untouched. The next day, Carol asked if I'd seen it. I said, yeah, and nothing. She frowned. He needs it for school. I nodded. He has a dad. She didn't say much after that, but I saw it in her eyes, the fear, not of me, but of change, of losing the quiet machinery of sacrifice she had relied on. I wasn't the man who leapt to fix things anymore. I wasn't invisible labor. I wasn't a second wallet disguised as a husband. I was present. I was just no longer theirs. The shift unsettled them. The house stopped functioning the way it used to. No more groceries appearing like magic. No more gas cards slipped into wallets. No more late-night rides because it's just this once. I watched from the sidelines as the cracks grew visible. Carol tried to fill the gaps, tried to pick up the slack, but it was too much. She wasn't used to carrying that weight alone. She'd ask me to handle the electric bill. I'd say, not my responsibility. She'd ask me to remind Logan about his homework. Ask his father, I'd say. And each time, I saw something in her dim a little more. They all had to start looking for the man whose name was in their stories, the one whose photos still lived on the walls. They found out quickly he wasn't answering. Charlie had long since moved on. New girlfriend, new kid, new life. Occasionally he'd send a message, "Happy birthday, buddy," or "Hope school's good," but nothing more. No support, no follow-through. One night, I overheard Nate on the phone with him. He sounded different, younger, unsure. "Can you help with tuition this semester? I need like $2,000 to cover." Pause. "I know, but Mom can't." Another pause. And then the K asterisk lure. "Jonathan won't anymore." I waited for him to say more. For the anger, the justification. But he didn't. Just silence. Then, "Okay. No, I get it. Bye." He didn't know I'd heard. I didn't bring it up. The next morning, I found him at the sink, rinsing cereal bowls. He looked tired, worn thin. I poured my coffee beside him. He didn't say a word, and neither did I, because we both knew the truth now. The man they'd worshipped from a distance was gone, and the one they'd dismissed was no longer willing. It didn't take long for the real panic to set in. Carol was the first to break. She cornered me in the hallway one evening, her voice low and trembling. "I need to know what's happening." "You already know." She stepped closer. "They're just kids. They don't understand." They understood enough to tell me I was nothing. Her eyes filled with something, regret maybe, or fear. "They didn't mean it. Doesn't matter. I heard it." She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "We need you, John." That word "we" rang hollow. "No," I said. "You need the man who used to carry all of you without complaint. He's gone." I walked past her. That night, the house fell into a new kind of silence. Not the comfortable quiet of a family at peace. This was the kind of silence that follows an earthquake. The walls still standing, but everything inside them altered. And that's when the bills came due. Nate's university called. Missed payments. Threat of deregistration. Carol scrambled, begged for extensions. Logan's school trip was canceled. No payment had come through. He blamed the school, blamed the forms. But I saw the emails. I knew the truth. Carol sat at the table one afternoon, head in her hands, surrounded by invoices. "I can't do this alone," she whispered. "You were never alone," I said. "You just didn't see me." And then came the final blow. Carol's car broke down. She called me from the shoulder of the road, voice brittle. "Can you come? I'm at work." "You can't leave early?" "I'm not your backup anymore." There was a pause. "You'd let me sit here?" I swallowed. "No, I'll call a tow. But I'm not showing up just to be forgotten again." I called the tow, paid for it, quietly, but I didn't go. Later that night, she didn't speak to me. She didn't have to. The message was clear. The foundation had cracked, and they were only just beginning to feel the cold. The boys sulked, confused, entitled, lost. They hadn't realized how many strings were tied to the man they had dismissed. And now those strings were cut. I saw it most clearly in the way they looked at me. Before, there had been disdain. dismissiveness, that edge of teenage contempt. Now, there was hesitation, calculation, fear. Nate hovered more, lingered in the kitchen. Logan asked questions indirectly. Do you know if Mom paid for? I didn't respond, because this wasn't about punishment. It was about truth. They had told me I was nothing, and I had believed them. Now they were learning what that meant. One night, Nate knocked on my door. First time in months. Hey, he said, voice small. Yeah. He shifted. I'm applying for a scholarship. Can you read over the essay? I stared at him. I thought I wasn't your dad. He looked down. I didn't mean it. I know, I said. But it doesn't change anything. He nodded. Left the paper on the table. I read it. I didn't mark it. Didn't comment. Didn't help. Because sometimes the lesson has to sink in without a cushion. Logan tried to. He passed me a game controller one afternoon, casual. Want to play? No. His face dropped. Okay. He walked away. That night, I heard him crying in his room. I didn't go in. Carol was the last to try. She made dinner. From scratch. All his favorites. Mine too. I came home late. On purpose. She waited up. We miss you, she said. I'm still here. No, you're not. I looked at her. At the woman I had held up for over a decade. You let them say I was nothing. And you said nothing. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't know what to say. You could have said I mattered. The food went cold. And that was when I realized. They were never going to understand until the comfort was gone. The protection. The quiet devotion. The man who always showed up even when he wasn't invited. He was gone now. And they were on their own. I didn't do it to hurt them. I did it to survive. Because giving everything to people who treat you like you're invisible isn't noble. The self-erasure. And I was done disappearing. I didn't leave. People always imagine it like that. Some dramatic exit, bags at the door, one last bitter look before the engine turns over. But I stayed. I stayed in the same house with the same walls, the same chairs that had held all of us at dinner tables we no longer used. I woke up, showered, went to work. I folded my clothes, paid my half of the mortgage, cooked for myself and repaired what I needed. I just stopped giving anything that wasn't required. No more extras. No more invisible labor. No more softening the world for people who couldn't bear to see me. Carol would watch me sometimes, her eyes quiet and unreadable. She didn't ask me to resume things. She didn't try to pretend it hadn't happened. But I saw it. The way her shoulders tensed when a bill came in, when Logan's phone glitched, when Nate asked if his textbooks would be covered. She knew the answer, but still she waited, hoping maybe I'd give in, play the role again. I didn't. The boys adjusted. Slowly. Awkwardly. They stopped asking for money. Stopped assuming I'd step in. They asked Carol instead or went without. Sometimes I'd see Logan staring at his cracked screen. Sometimes Nate would linger near the printer, waiting for her to refill the ink. None of it was mine to fix anymore. They never said sorry. Not directly. But small things started to shift. Nate started rinsing his dishes. Logan asked before borrowing anything. One night, when I came home, my boots were by the door, cleaned. No note. Just there, washed and placed neatly on the mat. It was something, but not enough to rebuild anything. Because it hadn't just been a single comment. It had been a lifetime of slow erosion, and I had finally collapsed under the weight of it. One Sunday, Carol asked if we could talk. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, that wide gulf between us, the same one we used to fill with shared glances, inside jokes, long sighs after the boys had gone to bed. She looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. I miss you, she said. I nodded. I miss who I was. Her eyes softened. You were. The room was quiet for a long time. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, I said. But I won't go back to who I was. And I meant it. Because something had changed in me. Permanently. I started going to therapy weekly. I started journaling. I bought a used motorcycle, rusted and stiff, but it gave me something to fix that wasn't human. Something with parts one could understand. I joined a group ride on Saturdays. Nobody there knew about the boys, about Carol, about the years I spent trying to earn a place in a story that was never mine. They just knew my name. Just Jonathan. Not the stepdad. Not Mom's husband. Just me. I liked that. I reconnected with my brother. With an old friend from college. I spent time fishing again. Something I'd stopped doing because it felt too selfish. But now I craved that quiet. That stillness that didn't ask anything of me. At home, the temperature stayed cold. The boys barely spoke to me. Occasionally Nate would offer a hey in passing. Logan once asked how the bike was coming along. I answered with a nod. Nothing more. We coexisted. That was all. One night, Nate knocked on my door. Asked if I could read over a resume. He stood there awkwardly, shifting on his feet. I said, sure. He handed it over and left the room. It was filled with errors. I didn't fix them. I circled them, made notes, left it on the counter. He picked it up the next morning. Said nothing. But I saw him reading the feedback carefully. Another time, Logan tripped on the back steps. Split his knee. Bleeding. Carol wasn't home. He came to me hesitant, pale. Patched it. Quietly. No scolding. No lectures. He mumbled, thanks. I nodded. You're welcome. That was it. These weren't reconciliations. They were acknowledgments. Little signals that maybe they were beginning to understand what I had been. But I didn't need their understanding anymore. Because I'd found something better. Myself. That man who used to wait for love like a dog waits at the door. Hoping, tail down, ears alert for praise, he was gone. In his place was someone new. Not bitter. Not angry. Just done. Done chasing approval. Done carrying weight that wasn't mine. Carol saw it. She didn't always know what to do with it. But she saw it. She'd try sometimes. Cook my favorite meal. Ask about my day. Tell the boys to speak up, to say thank you. I appreciated the effort. But it was too late for restoration. What we had before was broken. What was left was something else, thinner, more fragile. But honest. I kept my distance. I lived in the house like someone renting a room. Cleaned my space. Kept my calendar. Went to therapy. Rode on weekends. Worked. Slept. Ate alone. Sometimes I laughed. Not often. But enough to remember I could. One Saturday, Logan left a note. Thanks for helping with my knee. Sorry for what I said. It wasn't signed. It wasn't even dated. I left it pinned to the fridge. Didn't mention it. Nate once asked if I still considered myself part of the family. I said, did you ever? He didn't answer. Didn't have to. One night, Carol asked if I still loved her. I didn't answer right away. Because love, when it's been worn down by neglect, doesn't die all at once. It dissolves, piece by piece. Finally, I said, I loved who we were supposed to be. She cried. I didn't comfort her. Because every time I had done that in the past, I had erased myself to soothe someone else. Not anymore. And so the house kept turning. Days passed. Life went on. Nate went off to college, loans, grants, his mother's help. Not mine. Logan started working part-time. Bought himself a used phone. I saw the pride in his face. And I saw the shadow of a boy who finally realized what things cost when someone else isn't paying. Carol and I talked less. Slept in separate rooms. Shared bills, not dreams. And that's where I am now. I'm 49. I ride every Saturday. They may one day say the words I waited years to hear. But I won't need them. Because I'm not starving anymore. I'm not waiting to be loved. I'm just living. And for the first time in 12 years, that's enough. Because once someone tells you you're nothing and means it, the only question that matters is this. Do you keep proving them wrong? Or do you let them be right and walk away with your dignity? I chose the latter. And now I ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have stayed? Would you have endured it? Or would you have finally asked, as I did, if I'm nothing to you, then why should I keep giving everything?